Hey there, friends and enemies. JoPa here again, and today I wanted to talk about the First Descendant and my initial impressions of the game, pros, cons, good, bad, all that kind of good stuff. Now, one thing I want to say from the jump, I've played it for a few hours now, and I'm going to be showing some very early gameplay, just the initial mission, just because I don't really want to spoil much beyond that for those who want to jump in and play it themselves. The beta is ongoing right now for the next few days, so definitely check it out. There are drops happening on Twitch if you haven't snagged one and want to play in the beta. Now, obviously, this is a beta, so there's going to be some changes, but I wouldn't expect a complete overhaul of the game before it fully drops. So this is kind of what to expect. And I think a lot of people jumping into the First Descendant had some misconceptions about what the game is going to be. It's not Destiny. It never was intended to be Destiny, and the gameplay definitely shows that it's not going to be a Destiny-style game, but more in line with what you might expect from Warframe, with the combat feeling kind of similar to Outriders or something like that. So what that means is it's going to be a little bit more grindy. It's going to be really farming for materials, for loot, for all that kind of good stuff, rather than the Destiny drops where you just get specific weapons and armor pieces to drop or anything like that. The other similarity to Warframe that you're going to have is that instead of frames, like in Warframe, you'll have characters that you can improve, that you can unlock, and they all have different play styles similar to the different frames in Warframe. So that's just something to keep in mind. I think a lot of people are going in, everyone wants to call the next big looter shooter a Destiny killer, but it's really not similar to that. Third person, all that kind of good stuff. So keep that in mind. The visuals, as far as the cutscenes go, absolutely gorgeous. I feel like it's one of the prettiest games that I've ever played as far as pure cutscenes go. The gameplay itself, I think we're going to see a little bit of repetition over time with regards to the background and the enemies that we fight, which tends to happen early on in looter shooters. There's never going to be enough content to satisfy people who are grinding for hours and hours and hours, and that's one of the downsides of the game for sure. But overall, I think it's something to be expected from games like this, as long as there's enough variety not to make you bored too early on, which I think this game has enough to keep you interested for a while. For me personally, I think that's fine. And as a free-to-play game, it looks like this is one that's going to be expanding, much like Warframe, over the course of time, and the game a year, 2, 3 years from now is going to be much different. Because it's free to play, it does also have the luxury of building over time. You're not dropping $60 like Anthem and not enjoying your time, so then you never want to pick it back up. And as long as it's free, you can just pick it up and put it down whenever you want and come back when there are changes. So I do like that. That's a positive. The boss fights are really, really cool. I do enjoy those. I hope for more mechanics down the line with some of the bosses rather than just shooting off a piece of a boss and then taking them down. I think that's, especially when they get a little bullet spongy, that's a little bit boring in my opinion, and I'd love to see like some bosses that require a little bit more strategy. Now, the movement is fun. You're not going to be as fast or as side-to-side agile as you might be in Warframe, but the grappling hook is great. The cooldown is low enough that you can use it fairly often, so I do like that. And hopefully some of the bosses really take advantage of that as well, so you can grapple hook up to different spots to take down their weak points and all that kind of stuff. I think that would be really cool and a nice little innovation, something we haven't seen in a looter shooter, where it's not just horizontal gameplay, but a little bit more vertical as well. The other things that I really enjoyed, the abilities of the different characters all feel very unique. The weapons feel pretty cool once you get some different options under your belt. And I just feel like there's a lot of potential there with what we see from the abilities. We only get a couple characters that are available right away. Not a lot of weapons. I think there'll be a lot more variety once the full game drops as well. So all of that comes back to making it so you can really customize your character, make them your own, and add a little variety to builds. The one thing downside is for me is that runes didn't really have as much of a gameplay effect aside just numbers, like higher DPS numbers, higher this, lower that. So that's a little bit of a bummer. I'd like to see them be adding different interesting twists to gameplay, but maybe that we don't have all those available as well. As far as me, I'm a controller player. I normally play on console. So for me personally, The controller mapping was a little weird. The aim assist was wild because sometimes it'd get stuck on an enemy when you'd want to switch to a different enemy and it would like lock in place. That was weird. You're going to see that in the gameplay. And then all of a sudden the gun would kind of go wild after that. So that's something that needs to be worked on and hopefully is fixed with regards to the full game, especially on the console launch. It also, I felt like was because you couldn't see the button mapping on like it was the button mapping for keyboard and mouse, even though I was playing on controller. It threw me off when I was trying to use my abilities. You'll see during the boss fight that I'm trying to use my shield, but I'm just kind of janking around. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Although because the enemies were kind of squishy, I didn't really take a lot of damage and it didn't matter in the long run. But hopefully that's all fixed once the full game is released and it's on console, all that kind of good stuff. And it does have better controller support because I know Outriders was like that in the beginning and it improved dramatically upon later playthroughs and after launch, all that kind of good stuff. So those are the main points that I wanted to touch on. There's a lot of things that I think people are going to go in and either like the game or not. If you're a fan of games like Warframe, you will enjoy it. If you're going in expecting it to be another Destiny, you might not enjoy it. It might not be the game for you, and that's perfectly fine. I know this game takes a little bit of this and that from a variety of looter shooters, some familiar, some not, which is fine. I think the game, there's enough there for the game to stand out, especially if the individual characters that you play on are memorable. I think that's important, and that's what will separate it from Warframe and Destiny, is that each character has their own voice lines, has their own personality, has their own abilities. So I think that's really cool and is going to be one of the differentiating factors with regards to this game. I know, again, because of the type of game it is, because Warframe was very polarizing and still is for a lot of people. Not everyone enjoys that style of play. And this is Warframe, but like slower almost, more reserved, I guess, instead of the fast-paced all-action that Warframe is. So, again, for me, the combat feels a little bit more like Outriders in that regard, only you don't need cover as much, which is good because the cover-to-cover gameplay was not a lot of fun. Anyway, those are my general thoughts. I know it's just like a quick rundown. I'm going to play some more of the beta through the rest of the week and give more of my thoughts and gameplay and all that kind of stuff, take on some more bosses, and I'll let you guys know what I think. I'd love to hear from you, though. Do you enjoy the game? Do you enjoy watching the game from what you've seen? Have you tried it out yourself? Are you excited to play? Or is this a game you're going to just definitely wait and see? But since it is free to play, I think a lot more people are going to check it out. Anyway, hit that like button if you enjoyed the video. If you want to see more First Descendant content from me going forward, make sure you subscribe to the channel. My name is JoPa. I hope you have a good one, and I'll catch you all later.